Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Always Aggressive podcast. I'm Hunter Massengill, alongside head coach Tony Ursuline, Corey and Tanner, behind the scenes, and a new face to not only the show, but to the program in its entirety, and Daniel Lewis with his first year as a grad assistant for the Purdue Boilermakers. Glad to have you, Daniel.
I know people are disappointed that I don't get to be on camera today, but...
Disappointed, right.
Pretty solid for Daniel to get in there. I like it.
Daniel Lewis, four-time All-American at Missouri, so not only impressive on the mat, putting up 118-17 record in your 4 years at Mizzou, competing at 165 and 174, but also outstanding in the classroom as well. What was it about Purdue that not only tied you here, but was enticing to you when you were kind of putting the feelers out there for a grad assistant position?
It was really just kind of where I was at in my life and things that were happening. I knew I kind of needed a change in pace, and I was actually headed out to Colorado for an internship over the summer. And during that long 8-hour car ride just straight down I-70, I got a call from Tony, and I knew grad school was on the table from several different programs, several different areas, but something about Tony's offer really stuck. He knew my high school coach, Mike Haggerty, from back in the day.
Head of Big Ten officials.
Yep. Yeah, that's true.
We're hoping to have on the show at some point.
He's got an invitation.
If he's listening, we'd love to have you on the show.
Yeah, so Mike was like a father figure to me all through high school, and he's never led me wrong, and so that connection was really solid. So the Purdue opportunity, especially with the engineering ties, my undergrad at the University of Missouri was mechanical and aerospace engineering, and so to just further develop those ties to the career path I want to take, as well as staying involved with wrestling. The biggest thing for me, the biggest thing for me, I think was important to me was staying kind of in like the sport of wrestling and giving back to that sport in some way, because it had given me so many opportunities to compete at the highest level and to earn my education and to make these wonderful relationships and connections with people all over the United States, to give back to that, because I remember being a high school kid, a college kid, and having those GAs, those older guys in the room who have done it before, and the influence that they have on you. I think that's really important to the sport as a whole. And so when I got the opportunity and everything lined up with Purdue, I couldn't ask for a better offer or a better situation. So it was easy to come here and add to this program. And
Daniel used a really awesome term that I have not heard a young person use before. And I'm calling you young, just younger than me anyway.
I appreciate it.
And I would love to hear Tony's thoughts on this, but he used the term "earn my education." I thought I find that incredibly refreshing and kind of fantastic, and I think that's something that young student athletes should take up. Because
yeah,
I think too many people say they come to college and they get an education.
Yeah, it's they kind of take it for granted, and that is a big thing. You're a student athlete, and it's like, it's hard to say which one's more important. They're both equally up there, but I mean, there's very few people where wrestling is going to take them all the way throughout their whole life. From right when they start to they take a coaching career, they take the international senior level wrestling, and that takes them. It's very few people who can do that. So for everybody else out there, it's the education that you fall back on, and so the choices that you make. And it's such a weird time in an 18 to 22 year old's life. They're not thinking about their 30s and 40s, but it's important to keep that in the back of your mind and really try to find something that you're passionate about and that you would want to do for the rest of your life, and it's easy to get.
It's also, you mentioned your undergrad in mechanical engineering, focus on aerospace. Obviously that fits in here very well for you, Coach. With his academic not only success on the mat, like I said, success in the classroom as well. You've got a few guys on the team this year that are on pace to become All-Americans. How much do you think Daniel's influence has had on that, with being able to represent that mentality on and off the mat?
No, I think it's huge, and that's why he was my first call. When we had an opening, you always have a short list, right? I mean, I have a short list for everyone on my staff, because you never know what life's going to bring and what opportunities are going to present themselves. So you're always looking ahead, right? If you're stuck just where you're at and you're never planning for the future as well, you're going to get left behind. And I always appreciated how he competed, who he was, not only as a competitor but as a person. How you present yourself and comport yourself is always a big deal. And so clearly weight class is a consideration as well. Sure. So we had need of an upper weight. We have Jake, we have AJ, we have Coach Vega, right? Those guys all cover the bottom half of the lineup. As evidenced by my gray beard, I'm not on the mat nearly as much. So
ho ho ho.
That's right, Santa's back. But it lined up because everything I knew about him. He was a smart guy, had his priorities in line. Clearly valued his education as an engineer and wanted to further his education. So there was just so many things there that I thought lined up, and you always do your due diligence. He mentioned, I know Coach Haggerty, Mike Haggerty, for a long time, and I knew he wrestled for Mike. And I had been out at Nebraska, for a number of years before coming, so I knew that area of the country and had seen Daniel wrestle a lot. So, I was in a position to know a lot about him, even though I had never coached him, and I felt really comfortable from him as a person, which is first and foremost. I think a lot of our early talks where, it wasn't wrestling. That to me was a foregone conclusion. I knew he could wrestle. I knew he would add value to that, the room in that way with Leidy and Max and Bruner, and then that's been the case. But it's who you have around your guys is very important to me. And so who he was as a person was even more important. And so we spent a lot of time talking about what his goals are and how he sees his future and, how he would maybe kind of fit in based on what I was looking for, I guess.
Mm-hmm. You'd heard the rumors that Daniel cradled people, right?
Now, I'd heard something about that before. I only became aware of it until recently.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think Flo did some videos and he talked about breakdowns and cradles or something like that.
Flo did some videos.
Started doing it to Dylan in the wrestling room a little bit, maybe pushing him around. Speaking of Dylan, obviously, like I mentioned, you wrestled 165, 174. Yep. So you've been working with those weight classes, 174, 184, with Bruner as well. What are those guys, Bruner and Leidy especially, having such good starts to their season so far? What is it that you've seen? You've worked with them for just a couple months now. You didn't have a chance to meet them on the mat ever while you're at Mizzou, but seeing them in the wrestling room, what do you think has led to some of their success that they've been doing on the mat?
I think a lot of it's confidence, and that's something that hopefully I can add to. But I think the program as a whole and what they've been able to do, their careers here, Dylan and Bruner, already their confidence is growing, and when you become confident as a wrestler, you make really big steps in the right direction, and that's without really anything physically changing. You have a belief that you're going to go out there and impose your will on guys, and so I'm seeing that instilled in their minds right now, and that's a really big thing for a competitive advantage. Bruner and Leidy's styles are a lot different than mine, and mine's a lot different than theirs. So they get a lot of uniqueness from when we clash in the room. They see a different feel, and like for Leidy, he opens up sort of when he has to. When he has to, and I try to put like action in his face.
It's a good way to put it.
Yes. When he has to. I try to contrast them a little bit and give them feelings like I know how elite level wrestling, how they're going to get at the nationals, how they're going to how guys are going to be attacking constantly and keeping pressure, and so I think that's a really good.
And that's something that we've talked to both Jake and AJ about as young coaches. And Coach, I'm sure you went through this as well, of being able to kind of, you wrestled a certain way. You had a style. We just talked about your cradling when you were an athlete at Mizzou. But being able to change your style and throw different things at the guys you're working at in the room. You don't want to just, what you're best at is good for them to know, but you have to be able to work on different things on the coaching side with these guys to throw different things at them that they may see. So you kind of have to mimic, a variety of different styles as a coach rather than you did as a wrestler.
Yeah, and so I'm working on that because my wrestling, I have really high level wrestling, but it's in a box. It's in a box, and And so from a student athlete perspective, it's good to be in my box. I know how to get back to my box when I'm wrestling, and that's where I'm good. Yeah. And so coming to the coaching side of things, my box has to grow.
Sure.
And that's uncomfortable for me, but it's a little bit easier when I don't have the stress and the pressure of competing. You know, I have nothing to lose. Learn a new technique, learn a new skill, and I've done that a lot here. And I think that my box of wrestling is pretty different than Purdue always aggressive style. We like to finish as a program. We have a lot of on our feet finishes, a lot of hooks and ties, and that's not what I was great at in college. You know, I can wrestle from any position, but it's to get myself back to where I'm comfortable scoring. And so I think adding that to some of their wrestling, Max Lyon is a guy who really, I think, clicks better with some on the mat finishes, with some with his riding game, and so I think it's important, and I think it's a quality thing that I can help add and contrast, and so everybody's wrestling box is expanding a little bit, and that's really good. So I'm learning, and these guys are learning too, and that's a good thing.
And Coach, I'm sure you went through the same kind of transformation, you know, in your younger days of coaching, of having to grow with different weight classes, with learning how to coach smaller guys versus bigger guys, and the variety of techniques.
You know, you're always learning, right? You just always are. And it's, the reason Daniel, for me, has been great addition is not only because he can wrestle with these upper weights and make them wrestle from a variety of positions, right? Mm-hmm. But, you know, his style is very different, and he's spent thousands of hours perfecting his craft, right? Sure. So when we're down there in the morning, it's kind of fun for me to sit and watch him, and I'll pick his brain about how he came to be strong in this position, or why he does this, or when he gets this reaction, where does he go? You know, that's I'm learning all the time, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you're always learning, and you should always be open to learning, and that's what I've enjoyed. You know, we have guys on our staff that are very different. We all arrive at, you know, competing hard, training hard. That's what's great about the staff, right? Like, everybody, we're all on the same page as far as how you need to compete, maybe how you need to think, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. How you need to kind of, you know, keep yourself composed in the heat of the battle. Like, I feel like we're really good and on the same page in that way, but everybody brings little different pieces, and it keeps me kind of refreshed, because I'm learning some things that, you know, I was never a cradle guy, or even, you know, just wrestling from, he loves crackdown. You know, his number one finish off his high crotch is crackdown. I would never go there. Yeah. But learning those things and being able to add it, so when you have a young man that maybe fits him, you know, hey, we can go there, we can teach that. And so I've just really enjoyed it. You know, having these guys that are coming from different places and styles has been really refreshing for the guys. It's good for them, because if we're in this position down the road, we've been there a million times with him. And maybe they wouldn't be there with me, because I'm talking about driving to our feet, getting big on a finish, and he's going to take a little different approach, which is good. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's been fun from my seat. You know, when Daniel first came in, I remember him sitting with the staff, and Tony was asking about some stuff, and Daniel was expressing how I have a hard time. I just do it. I don't know how to explain it. I just do it. And he's, I mean, in the short time that he's been doing this, he's already grown. He's gotten a lot better at, like, explaining stuff to the guys. And when somebody like me, who has no clue, you know, never done it, never been on the mat, never done any of that stuff, when he's saying stuff and I can understand what he's saying, it means he's going in the right direction.
All right.
Okay.
You got the layperson.
Woo!
That can figure out what he's talking about. Then yeah,
I can teach anybody how to wrestle.
Exactly.
I'm that good.
That's the bar.
You're
You
going
can
that
teach Tanner.
direction.
You can teach anyone.
Yeah, no, but that is a real thing. I mean, so as a student athlete, I just find ways to do it myself. I don't think about it out loud, or my coaches give me tips to improve it. But wrestling is such a dynamic sport and everybody's body composition is different. You have to find a way to do stuff and have it work for you. And it's going to vary between, what opponent you're wrestling, what kind of body composition do they have. And so, but breaking down the technique is something I haven't had to do. And so that's another really big learning curve as far as coaching is concerned, because I have to figure out, when another guy across the room, when one of the guys in the room is asking me, Daniel, am I doing this right? I really have to break down the wrestling and try to think about it outside of my own body. Because my arms are longer than his, so maybe he's going to have to put his hips in more or adjust this way. And so it requires a lot more breakdown, and that's something I'm learning and I'm adapting as well to really help these guys be successful. It's not just success within myself. And
well, that learning and adapting is never going to stop. I'm sure Coach can attest to that. That's going to be a lifelong thing for quite a few years. Only one duel this past weekend, taking on the Hoosiers down in Bloomington, getting the win, 23-9. It's a big match, not only because of the rivalry, but 10 straight. So that's important too. It's also important.
It's a nice round number.
It is a nice round number.
A decade, if you will.
Hopefully it turns into 11 next year, so it's not going to be, we're not just going to end it at the round number. But it's a big match, not only because of the rivalry, but because it matters on a lot of different levels in terms of recruiting. It's a school that's so close, another school that's in the Big Ten. We hear coaches talk about all the time of wanting to put up a wall around your state. At the very least, you want the best kids in your state to come to your school. That going down and having a one-on-one with the other premier wrestling school in the state of Indiana, to be able to have this stretch of wins, hopefully has some ripple effects throughout every aspect of the sport.
No doubt. I mean, you want to take care of, as you mentioned, your borders, right? You want to secure your state. But honestly, like for our guys, it's just about building and moving forward every week. That's the goal never changes. It's probably more fun because it's your in-state rival, right? Like everybody, to build the crowds and the intensity and the great rivalry between the two schools in all sports, it's fun, right? Like that kind of a rivalry game, a rivalry match is a fun thing and should be enjoyed. But from a mental perspective, like you said, you never want to make things special. You know what I mean? They're always just important because it's another chance to compete. So I certainly don't want to sound like I'm downplaying it, because there is a lot of value there from recruiting, like you say, and just the rivalry the tradition that it has. It's important, but it's another opportunity to build on and make progress towards your ultimate goal, and that's really how we wanna keep going. And the thing is, I think Daniel mentioned a word earlier that's been kind of a theme in our room too. It's belief, right? He talked about confidence. Confidence is belief. And so you're just continuing to build your belief right now. You're sharpening your skill sets. You're sharpening your mind. It's just building that belief towards March. You know what I mean? So that really, like I said, I don't want to downplay it, because certainly it is important, and it's a fun thing, and you love those kind of matches. But more than that, it's another opportunity to just keep building and believing in what you're doing as you head towards March.
Well, Dylan Leidy getting another win, winning in overtime. That puts him at 6-0 on the season. Crazy, he's been in six overtime matches, and even crazier that he's won all 6 of them. My question to you is, and I think I know the answer to this, but I'd like to hear you say it. How many matches?
Make him work for it.
How many matches does Dylan Leidy have to win in overtime before they get to sudden victory and you start to get a little less anxious? I mean, obviously, anything can happen in a sudden victory period, like, a slip, a miss, and all of a sudden the match is over.
Slip, trip, and fall.
Is it ever going to get to the point where it's not as nerve-wracking, where you feel comfortable with Dylan going into overtime match?
We've talked a lot about, as wrestlers, you don't want to be comfortable, right? You want to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That's the phrase everybody uses. And so I won't tell you that I'm ever comfortable with it, right? Like, I won't ever be comfortable with it. I have a lot of confidence and belief in Leidy in those moments. I'll take our guy over other guys in those moments because his composure is always good. He's a guy who knows how to go get one when he needs one.
Yeah.
We want to keep building towards scoring in the first and forcing other guys to come after him, because that will help him widen the gap between him and his opponents. So the goals are going to be the same. We're going to try to get him going in the first. And what Daniel had mentioned earlier, which I really love about him, is he'll come at Leidy hard, and then the action gets going. Like, Leidy has to understand that he can score early, he can score in the middle, he can score late. But not everybody, approaches that match the same way, right? If you watch what happened down there, and those two guys are very familiar with each other, the young man from IU.
Right.
But it was a very conservative match from his part as well. We just don't want Leidy to get sucked into those kind of matches. Stay aggressive, go get your points. Try to widen the gap because your skill set is so strong. But no, I'm never comfortable with it. I'll tell you, I'm very confident in our guys because we train hard and I know they're in shape. So I'm very confident with our guys late and being able to get it done. But you know what? You don't want to fall back on that. I'll use, and I'm going on a tangent here a little bit. But like let's use Jordan Burroughs. Okay, for a number of years, Jordan was winning those big moments, right? And he's even said, I think he's blogged out there, even commented in interviews where he just always, he almost relied on it at the end at some parts of his career where he knew when he had to go get one, he could get it and he'd win, right? 10 seconds to go, he could explode, get a guy out of bounds for a push out or get his two and he'd win. And he almost got too comfortable with that. And now the last couple of years, I think in the semifinals, he's lost to the same guy now on the same kind of situation, and he couldn't make up the ground. So in his mind, that's where he's trying to tweak. He's trying to be better, not letting it get down to that late. So similarly, I think you got to learn. You should be confident. Lighty has every reason to be very confident, but man, don't rely on it.
Yeah.
Push yourself.
I was going to say that's kind of the style of 174 across the Big Ten this year. You got a lot of guys that love to wrestle those close one takedown matches, a lot of overtime. Guys like Labriola, guys like Skatska, guys like Kovac from Indiana, Gunther from Illinois. Like these guys are they're super into the one takedown matches. It's kind of it seems like it's a stylistic thing, maybe just in this year of Big Ten wrestling.
Well, it actually makes me think, and this is going back a little ways, but when you had, I think it was Storley from Minnesota, Kokesh, who I was, at Nebraska for, Robert Kokesh, the Iowa young man, I forget his name.
I'm losing it too. Was that
Mike Evans?
Mike Evans.
Evans.
Luke Manuel was in that area, wasn't he, from Purdue?
Yeah. I mean, but there was those guys all went around and around with each other. Daniel probably doesn't even remember these guys, but so he's out of the conversation for a minute. But
Daniel was like 12.
But those guys knew each other really well. I mean, they were tough to score on. It reminds me a little bit of that. When you're familiar with your opponents and those guys are maybe strong defensively, you have to really work hard to score, and that's what we're working on. Like I said, Lighty can do it. He can score with the best of them. We've got to get him started early in the match, and he's going to be fine.
And that's what it sounds like you may be working on with him too a little bit, Daniel, is throwing that, going out, attacking early in the first period, at least throwing that at him so whenever he runs across someone that may do that, he's prepared to be defensive and then turn that defense into offense and then maybe adapt a little bit where he can kind of change his game to, as we said, the 174, a lot of the top 174 guys are very similar to set himself apart from that group and may throw a curveball at a guy that he may see at Big Tens or at Nationals that isn't ready to get that active that early in a match.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if Dylan were to score early, his defense is impeccable. It's very hard to score on him, especially if a guy's coming at him. He's got great hands and great hips and great movement. And so a score early it would be huge for him because when guys are coming at him, that's when his reattacks open up and that's when he's very dominant.
Right.
And so to make him March ready, I think those early attacks are going to be crucial to a podium finish versus a national champion in the finals.
Another guy I wanted to touch on, Thomas Panola, getting a win down in Bloomington this past weekend. A guy that's he's been a little bit of a project for you for the last couple weeks, stepping up from the 197 up to the heavyweight position. I know the nutritionist and strength conditioning have had some fun with him to be able to put some weight on him, bulk him up a little bit to fill in that weight gap that he's been giving up for the last couple weeks. But getting a win down there, getting a ranking from Flo, I believe, right?
Flo and the open mat of both. He's jumped into the top 25 in a couple of the polls now, so people are
good.
People are starting to take notice of Mr. Panola.
He's been seeing some serious competition as well to hopefully prepare him for later on in the season. Some of your thoughts on Thomas Panola's, just the work ethic that he's had over the last couple of weeks to help him even the playing field at heavyweight.
No, that it's what we thought about Tom, right? What he was doing at 197 when he showed signs of being a tremendous competitor and worker, and the belief he had in himself. We thought that would translate well to heavyweight because he would do what he was asked as far as the calories consumed. So often we talk about the discipline in bringing your weight down, right? There's the same kind of discipline in eating 6 times a day when you might be full and you don't want to. It's uncomfortable. It's a different kind of uncomfortable, right? But we knew he would do the work, and he has, and it's continuing. He's thicker, he's bigger, but he's still moving well. He's still in shape, so he still has the same attributes that he had down a weight. Only he's starting to kind of fill into the weight more, and so I think you'll continue to see him kind of trending in a strong direction. So I'm just really happy the direction that he's going, and we think that another 2 months of continued development, he'll be a strong competitor at the weight class.
A couple other guys to throw in there, Tony.
Wait, hang on.
Go ahead, Dan. Jump in there.
I want to comment on Thomas because him as a competitor, I think he's a guy that like his whole persona, his whole work ethic. I think that's what every coach looks for when they're recruiting a kid. This is a guy who doesn't ask questions. He believes it, and he's going to do anything you ask. And this man works. I mean, harder than he's one of the top working guys in the room, and he's an anomaly for me to see coming from 5 years of college wrestling. His work ethic is incredible. It's tremendous, and so I can't imagine anything but a strong incline for his whole wrestling career because that man is bought in, and it's awesome to see.
Well, consider me jealous because. I mean, if someone came to me and said, "Hey, we're going to need you to eat a lot more," I wouldn't be too mad about that.
It's an attractive proposal.
Shucks. Yeah. A couple of cool notes from IU. We had several guys get their first career Big Ten dual victories.
Yep.
Parker Phileas at 141 got his first career Big Ten
dual
victory. Yep.
Good for him.
Kendall Coleman at 157.
Yep.
I told Coach that yesterday, and he had a good laugh just because Kendall's been running the gauntlet lately, and so
his first 2 duels were against number 1 and number 4.
Yeah.
I'll say number 3 or 4.
To see him be able to wrestle somebody who's not ranked in the top 5 is kind of a nice breath of fresh air for him. He is when I look at this, I think he's 15-0 against unranked competition this year.
Yep.
So his
it's taken a really good guy to beat him, but another guy that by March, how far he's going to come as a freshman, I think is going to be significant.
Absolutely. And certainly, last but definitely not least, Tanner Webster with his first Big Ten dual victory, getting that win at 165. That was a good one for us.
Absolutely. Nice for Tanner, right? Like, Emil is out and Tanner has an opportunity. You like to see somebody make the most of their opportunity, and so congrats to Tanner.
Well, speaking of wrestling against ranked competition, 4 of the next 5 duels that we got on the schedule are against top 25 opponents. Fortunately,
welcome to the Big Ten.
Yeah, that's the way it goes.
That's what it is.
There's ranked teams in the Big Ten?
Yeah.
I come from the MAC. This is way different.
It is the MAC.
It's still weird. It's still weird to think of Missouri as a MAC wrestling
That's
school.
good to note. That
it is.
Missouri is a MAC school for wrestling. The SEC doesn't recognize wrestling as of yet. I've heard some rumblings that there's some programs down there that are looking to start up a wrestling program. But
that would be cool.
As of right now,
it'd be nice to see the SEC get back in there.
Yeah. 4 of the next 5 duels against top 25 opponents. Fortunately, you get 3 of them at home, but those are still a little ways away. You've got Rutgers and Maryland. Flipped. You got Maryland and then Rutgers on the schedule for this weekend, Friday and Sunday. A little bit of an East Coast swing for the team. Wrapping up, have 7 duels, 3 days, and goodness gracious,
3 duels.
In 6 days. That's what I was trying to get out.
Unique New York. Unique New
especially
York.
with the duel on Monday this past week, which was a little bit different. How does that change your guys' schedule this week? Not only recovering from a duel that's a day later, but preparing for not only another road trip this weekend.
Well, I mean, from a preparation standpoint, we started that last week. We had the longer week going into a Monday duel, so we had some good training opportunities, and we did. So we took the most of that time, and we got some really good work in, and then obviously you tapered just a little bit for your Monday duel. This week you really get one good opportunity to work before we're out the door, and that's today. Yesterday was a day off. coming off a holiday Monday, so the kids got to get their schoolwork and things squared away for a week. Today we'll train. Tomorrow we jump on a plane and head out. So honestly, the work from that standpoint was done last week. It's honestly just make sure your weight's in a good place. Come in today, we'll get a good hard blow, and then we'll get ready to leave. So as long as their weight is where it needs to be, and we've talked about that. You're working ahead. Then the guys should be fine. I'm happy with how we'll come into the weekend.
And the competition certainly doesn't get any easier, taking on the Terrapins first on Friday, and then Scarlet Knights ranked 22nd, I believe.
Are you going to make me look it up? Because I'm not sure offhand.
I'm not. I think it's 22nd.
They are appearing, though. I know they're appearing in
they're
the top
definitely
25.
They're
Yeah,
top
sure.
25 dual team for sure.
Yep.
Neither of those duels one you can sleep on. These guys are going to have to be ready to go out and compete and can't look ahead to the extremely tough home schedule that's on the other side of that with Nebraska, Wisconsin, and Minnesota all coming up.
This year comes down to just being ready every match. As I mentioned before, it's about improving on your tactics and your composure and everything there. Just sharpening your skill sets, and that's all we're looking for. Because if you expect to go in and it to be easy, that's when you get sucked into a match where it's a whirlwind and you're like, how am I here? Sure. Well, you expected it easy and it's hard. You just got to be ready for it to be hard. When you make it tougher on your opponent, that's when it's an easier match on you. Okay, and so that's all I care about is these guys are ready to go into their matches and make it be tough on their opponent. Wrestle your match, keep the pressure on them. That's really what we're looking for. The rest of it's going to take care of itself if we wrestle hard. We've got good talent. The kids have worked hard. I feel like we're in shape. You know what I mean? So it's going to be about just being ready to go into battle hard.
Yep.
I will say, as a side note for Daniel, I think he's looking forward to this trip. For anybody who doesn't know, his longtime assistant coach, Coach Clemson, who's now the head coach at Maryland, first-year head coach, was the assistant at Missouri with Daniel. So I think he's probably looking forward to seeing Coach Clemson.
Yeah, definitely. Clemson and I came into Missouri the same year. I graduated high school in 2014, and we both went to Missouri at the same time, and we had a really good connection. We clicked really well. On and off the mat, on a personal level, and so I know his family, his kids, and so I'm excited to.
Should be exciting to have a little bit of a reunion with
and
the
then
coach.
During the duel, we've got a mental advantage there because I'm going to torment this man. I know how to get.
I am going to torment.
Psychological warfare has begun.
Well, Coach Clemson, you've been put on notice. If you're watching, Daniel Lewis is coming for you.
Better have your mind right.
And on that note,
he'll throw it right back at me though. So we'll see how the refs
it'll be a lot of fun.
Handle the interaction.
And it's not like Daniel talks a lot during matches anyway, Tony. He doesn't have a lot to say to officials or other coaches or he's a quiet guy.
Well, before we get ourselves in trouble here, good luck this weekend, Coach. Good luck to everyone on the team. Daniel, thanks for joining the show today. We're
Absolutely. I'm just glad I've got Wednesdays off. So
we couldn't get him on last semester. The man's in class. He's doing work.
He is a grad assistant.
He's earning that education.
Still a student.
Yeah.
Well, we're happy to have you on. Happy to be part of the program. You're always welcome back anytime. No one has anything else, please?
Maybe not anytime. He will show up unannounced, like regularly.
That's okay. You can just steal the mic from Tanner. We already talked about he doesn't have any wrestling experience, so he'll probably give it up.
I don't know
pretty
my
easily.
coaching. I don't know what he's picked
That's
up.
true.
All fair comment. You're right. I've been listening.
Any questions, comments, concerns?
I've been practicing on my kid at home. So
if you want to comment,
I'm ready.
If you want to comment on Coach Ursulin's beard, at Purdue Wrestling on all social media platforms. For Coach, Daniel, Corey, and Tanner behind the scenes, I'm Hunter Massengill. Always Aggressive Podcast. We'll see you next time, and as always, boiler up.